Okay, Child's Play 1. This is a good movie. I'm going to go through the entire movie. I'm going to talk about spoilers. I'm going to talk about behind the scenes stuff. I'm going to give thoughts and opinions throughout. I recommend seeing it. It's a pretty good movie. The movie starts off with a police chase. I guess he's going after someone called the Strangler.
I got the Strangler! Wabash it! Van Buren!
They really just kind of throw that information on you. I don't know how you're supposed to actually retain that in your first viewing. It's just like right after the first credits, it says, I got the Strangler.
I got the Strangler! Wabash it! Van Buren!
So the Strangler's running from the cops. He's trying to get back to his van. The guy in the van sees the cops, freaks out, runs away. I'm not really quite sure why a Strangler has a van guy to begin with. It seems like a one-person job. Wait a minute. Hold on. Stop. Did that cop seriously just drive by him because he hid behind a post? Sure, whatever. The other cop's still chasing him, so he has to break into a toy store out of all things. And yep, nice shot. So he breaks into the toy store and finds the doll. Puts himself in the doll because he knows voodoo, and that's the whole intro. I mean, this whole intro feels rushed, like it was probably written better than executed. I kind of get this vibe that everything was just shot on one take. This intro wasn't in the original script. Voodoo wasn't even in the original story. The whole origin of Chucky and what Chucky was used to be a lot stupider.
One of the features of the dolls that didn't make it to the final film is that they have synthetic blood in them, so that if you play with the doll too roughly, the latex skin will break and then it will start to bleed, and then you have to go out and buy Band-Aids. In a rite of brotherhood, the little boy cuts his thumb and the doll's thumb and mixes their blood together, and it's after that that the doll comes to life.
So all my nitpicking aside, let's just remember that this could have been a lot worse.
I saw this one.
So after all that, we're introduced to Andy, who's played by Alex Vincent. Andy's a pretty likable kid in this movie. They did a good job putting down his character as just a innocent 6-year-old kid who doesn't really know what's going on. And I mean, he's kind of a dumbass, but he's 6. So, I mean, most 6-year-olds are dumbasses. That's why it kind of works. He's not some genius kid or some Mary Sue. He's definitely a flawed character. And that's why it works in this movie, because it's very hard to pull off a likable, flawed character. And they do it mostly through Andy just being a naive 6-year-old to the reality of the world. It's really an underrated performance writing-wise to nail this character so well.
I made you breakfast in bed.
You did? Oh, God. Oh, thanks. Well, this looks just excellent. I'll tell you what. Why don't I eat this just a little later, okay?
Next, we're introduced to Catherine Hicks, who plays Andy's mom in this movie. She's probably the best actor in this movie. She really just nails the role. She was very well casted. I think she was in other stuff like Seventh Heaven, but I never really watched that. It's trash. Speaking of trash, the original idea for these characters were way worse. Andy was going to be a little brat who would like wish ill will on people, and then because he was a blood brother with the doll would then kill him. And the mom was apparently a big prick.
There was some significant changes between my original script and the final version of the movie. In my original script, the mom, I had her as the advertising executive, who's sort of the mastermind behind the whole campaign, because I just thought that that made the satire of that world a little more pointed.
I'm talking so much about the script, I might as well just break down what happened with it. It started off with Don Mancini being like, hey guys, I have a script. And then David Kirshner saw the script and was like, well, I want to do a killer doll movie, but we got to fix this. So he gave it to John LaFia, and John LaFia saw that Andy and his mom were written like complete garbage. So he changed it and made them likable characters. And then David Kirshner was like, all right, this is shootable, but it's still missing something. Let me bring in my friend Tom Holland, who just directed Fright Night. And then Tom Holland saw it and was like, yeah, this origin story with the Blood Brothers is really stupid. Why don't we just do Voodoo instead so we can have an actual bad guy? And also my friend Brad Dourif can be in it. And that's how we have Child's Play today. But that doesn't stop Don Mancini from walking around like he's the creator of Child's Play. Anyway, back to Catherine Hicks nailing it and being a really good actress in this movie. She really had the right approach to it.
Well, first of all, I was in denial. It was a horror film. So Chris and I were in Chicago doing all these people scenes and Alex and mother and son and detective and I really, in my mind, there was no horror. This was really sort of a detective mother-son story.
She always thought it was a family story.
Because, horror.
It's amazing, but I guess a little ironic that her dislike for the horror genre is what led to her being great in this horror movie. A horror movie should work dramatically without the horror element.
Hey, I think they're going to be okay. We'll just have to take them up just a couple of inches.
Anyway, it's Andy's birthday today, and he's opening his presents, and he wanted a good guy doll.
Well, what do you think?
I want a good guy to go with it.
I know you do, Andy, but I didn't know about it in time this month to save up for it.
Okay, now this is full-on spoiler territory. I'm now going to be talking about Maggie, who is the first victim of Chucky. When you have victims in a horror movie or slasher film, they have to be likable, otherwise you start rooting for the bad guy or killer. Maggie's only in 3 scenes, and they managed to make her likable. I'm going to quickly go over what they did in order to accomplish that. So far, the only conflict in the story is that Andy wants a good guy doll.
I want a good guy to go with it.
Hi, you know that doll that you wanted for Andy? It only cost $100.
Yeah, the good guy doll.
There's a peddler in the alley behind the store, and I think he's got one.
So there's the very first time we meet Maggie, and she's bringing a solution to the only conflict of the plot so far. Not only that, but it wasn't even her problem, it's her friend's problem, so she's helping her friend at the same time. These are just generally likable qualities in somebody.
Oh, how much do you want for it?
$50.
10 and not a penny more.
30.
What are you kidding? That thing is not worth $30.
Look, take it or leave it. Somebody else will buy it.
I'll take it.
Karen.
Maggie sees that Karen is vulnerable and desperate for the doll, so she haggles for her.
Hey, hold on, you! How do we know the damn thing isn't stolen, huh?
Steal this.
Yeah, steal this yourself. Maggie, I think I dated him.
Next, we meet their comically evil boss who wears a pink bow tie.
Have a heart, Criswell. We were just downstairs buying a little boy a birthday present.
We have specified break times for activities like that, Miss Peterson. Mrs. Howe has taken sick, and we're shorthanded tonight. You'll have to fill in for her.
I can't. I have to pick up my son at the daycare center in an hour.
I'm sorry, this is an emergency.
Wait a second. I'll take over for her.
Miss Peterson, you work in shoes, not in jewelry. You'll just simply have to do it. Now, you can take off at 5, but you'll have to be back at 7.
It's my son's birthday.
Mrs. Barclay, are you happy with your job here?
I don't get why this guy is such a prick for no reason, but yeah, they had to put a bad guy in somewhere at this point, just so Maggie could stand up to him a little bit.
Chill out, would you, Walter? Huh? I'll take care of Andy for you.
Maggie, you can't do it again.
Don't be silly. It'll be the hottest date I've had in months.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, Criswell's a real authority when it comes to swimming in women. So Karen leaves work, gives Andy the doll.
This isn't groceries.
A good guy! Hi, I'm Andy. What's your name? Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end. Heidi-ho.
Wow. So yeah, back to Maggie. They did a good job quickly fleshing her out, and a lesser horror movie would have had her as just the babysitter. You can tell that she's been Karen's friend for a while and has been a positive impact on her life. A crappier movie would have just written her in as the babysitter. Anyway, on to the fun stuff.
DOL with the late-breaking report. Eddie Caputo, reputed accomplice of Charles Lee Ray, has just escaped the Michigan Avenue precinct.
If you don't remember who Eddie Caputo is, I don't blame you. He's from that rushed intro and only appears for a second.
Aunt Maggie, Chucky wants to watch the 9 o'clock news.
Sure he does.
So Maggie puts him to bed because it's bedtime, and this leads into the first creepy part of the movie.
And have the Commission on
gang-related violence, issue recommendations to him. Back to you, Steve.
Thank you, Terry.
I mean, I get why they did this. It's just, why call back the intro so heavily? Why did they even keep the intro in the first place? They should have just cut it. Everything from the intro was pretty much regurgitated throughout the story anyway, with the exception of the Eddie Caputo character. But who cares about him? He's not even a character. He only has like one line in the movie. If they just left it vague, there would have been a lot more nuance to this story, and you wouldn't really know whether or not Chucky was alive for the first half.
What did Chucky do? Walk into the living room and turn it on all by himself?
Did you do that, Chucky?
Andy, stop it. Now, come on, under the covers.
But because we saw the stupid voodoo thing in the beginning, we know that doll's possessed, and it would have been better if we didn't know that. It would have been better if we could actually ask the question, is this doll alive or is this kid actually nuts? And I guess what adds frustration to this is that they kind of shoot the first half of the movie like you're supposed to not know, like you're supposed to ask questions on what's actually going on. But we know what's going on. We saw the stupid intro. Next, we have a really long scene of Chucky's point of view moving around the apartment, stalking Maggie. This could have been shot with some questions on whether or not it was actually Chucky or Andy doing this, but it's obviously Chucky. There's about 3 minutes of her stalking the apartment, trying to see, hey, who was that over there? Is someone here? And it just leads into this.
What is wrong with me? I'm scaring myself half to death.
Yeah, it's a pretty stupid death. I think they could have done her a little more justice than that. It's like she got hit with a hammer and then threw herself out the window. Anyway, Karen comes home, finds the crime scene.
Oh, miss! Whoa! What are you doing?
I live here.
This is another good scene of just Catherine Hicks shining as a concerned mother.
Andy?
Yeah, we're all finished up here.
Oh, no. Andy? Andy? Andy!
Mommy!
Oh, thank God. Are you all right?
Next, we're introduced to Detective Mike Norris, who was played by Chris Sarandon. Tom Holland directed him in Fright Night and brought him into Child's Play. He does a pretty good job. There's nothing outstandingly memorable about his performance in this movie, but he works with what was written for him.
Got any idea what these are?
No.
They look like footprints, don't they? Very small footprints.
What are you implying?
So then Andy goes to bed, notices the flower on Chucky's shoes. Not quite sure how the cops managed to miss this. So Andy goes and tells them.
Mommy, I know who was on the kitchen counter.
Andy!
Who, Andy?
I thought I
Who?
Chucky.
Your doll?
I mean, Andy wouldn't have sounded like such a dumbass if he just brought the doll with him. Really, everyone's just kind of incompetent in this scene. I like how the mom tells him to screw off back to bed, though. Anyway, the mom kicks them out, but then this happens.
What?
You gonna call me?
I guess you don't win if you don't play. I don't know.
Give this to the lab. Found it in the corner of the kitchen. What is this? Possible murder weapon.
No! Come on, you're kidding me!
Yeah, you're kidding me, right? It's a toy that was on the ground. How is that potentially a murder weapon? She fell through the window. You missed the obvious clue of flour on the doll's shoes, but you'll just pick up any toy off the ground and be like, yeah, this is it. Why did Chuck even use that? Isn't he the strangler? Shouldn't he have tried strangling her? I mean, I get it if his doll hands are too small to strangle anybody, but he could have tried. Anyway, now the mom hears the son talking to Chucky.
Andy, who are you talking to?
Chucky.
Okay, Andy, now's your time to show the mom the flower on the shoes, clear your name for being a lunatic, and just really set the record straight. You can do it, Andy. Your reputation depends on it.
Chucky, huh?
Yeah, sure, Chucky. He's sitting right over there.
All right, it's hopeless. I don't think Andy's going to be able to clear his name on this one.
His real name is Charles Lee Ray, and he's been sent down from heaven by Daddy to play with me.
This would be like a lot better if, again, they didn't have the intro sequence, and maybe in the beginning he was watching the news and he was watching the report of Charles Lee Ray, like a breaking news thing on the shootout and the explosion. It would let the audience ask, is Andy crazy? Instead, I'm asking, does Andy have a learning disability?
He said that Maggie was a real bitch and got what she deserved.
Alright, yeah. She tries to explain that Chucky's just a doll, but Andy strikes back with some emotional manipulation.
It's because of Aunt Maggie you're yelling at me, isn't it?
So Andy wins this round and goes to bed. Okay, so it's the next day and Chucky and Andy are going to school. Chucky convinces Andy to leave school. This is kind of confusing actually. I don't know why Chucky would need Andy to come with him. It's not like Andy knows the subway system or anything. Also, it's been pretty well established that Chucky can move around on his own. Maybe Chucky just wanted some hugs and kisses on the way there. I guess you could argue Chucky's trying to keep a low profile, but he moves around all over the city later on, so it doesn't make sense. Also, they keep doing this silent whispering thing where it seems like only Andy can hear Chucky. It only happens in the first half of the movie, and I guess it would have been better if it wasn't so obvious Chucky was alive. I'd also like to point out the comical amount of fire barrels here in this scene. It's like a cartoon version of a homeless community. So Chucky leads Andy over to Eddie's house.
Is that Eddie's?
There's that silent whispering again.
You stay here. I have to go tinkle.
So Chucky is conveniently left alone, and now he can get his revenge on Eddie Caputo. Remember him? It's funny how this movie does a 180 from building up likable characters that get killed to just random Chucky associates.
I'll be right there, Chucky.
Yeah, this is probably one of the stupidest parts of the movie. I think it was just written this way so they could put Andy at the crime scene. It feels kind of lazy and stupid. If the plot required Andy to be at a crime scene, they could have just built up another character and had him die while Andy was in the apartment or nearby. This Eddie character just doesn't make sense. Like literally, his existence doesn't make sense. Why does a strangler need a van guy? How did he escape from prison? If you did escape from prison, why would you go back to your shack house? Wouldn't you go hiding somewhere to avoid the police? Wouldn't the police think to look here? How does opening an oven door wake somebody up? Did you hear that thump sound effect they added in afterwards just to sell it? Ovens don't make that sound. How did Chucky even know that he was here? They didn't see each other. Why is Chucky even bothering with this? Why doesn't he just go get a gun and shoot him? Why is he going so slow and sneaking if he's just going to turn around and shoot everything with no rhyme or reason to it? It's not exactly the way to keep a low profile. If the house is filling up with gas, wouldn't he smell it? Wouldn't he think twice before shooting an open oven that reeks of gas? How long was that oven on for anyway? Why did he shoot at it? Why did any of this happen? So Karen gets called into the police station. Andy somehow is at the police station and being questioned about Aunt Maggie. I'm not really sure how they got here. Maybe they were hanging around the crime scene or something. Karen comes in and talks some sense into the kid.
Nobody believes you about Chucky.
Andy decides to shoot a Hail Mary and go for it.
Come on, Chucky, say something. Tell me why you lied to me about everything.
I like this stuff with Andy. I think he does a good job portraying that naive kid who doesn't realize he sounds crazy.
Mrs. Barkley, my name is Dr. Ardmore. I'm from County General. I've seen more than enough. Maybe Andy should spend a couple of days.
So Andy gets sent to a child's mental hospital? I guess that's a thing. That whole sequence is just poorly written. I still don't know why he was even in that police station to begin with. It's somewhat forgivable though because it sets up Karen alone with Chucky. Out of all the killer doll movies to ever exist, or killer dummy movies or anything like that, Child's Play has the best doll reveals himself to be alive sequence ever. It starts off with Karen looking at the doll, wondering if it could possibly be alive.
Say something, damn it!
And then she's like, alright, oh well, he's crazy. I tried. It's nice to see the mom try to get the doll to talk. You can tell she's trying to avoid the hard truth that maybe her son did kill Aunt Maggie. She notices that she forgot to throw away the box. She picks it up and whoops! She puts two and two together and realizes the doll has been talking this entire time without batteries. She decides to double check to make sure because she's not a complete idiot, and we get a pretty funny sequence.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Okay, that part's not the funny part. That's probably the most iconic scene in the movie. What follows, I think, is just kind of funny. We see this long, slow take of her to kneel down and retrieve the doll. He just revealed himself to be alive. He could attack at any moment. Brace yourselves. And he's just sitting there doing nothing. I guess Chucky just didn't really know what his next move would be. He just sort of rolled under there and was sort of like, now what? This is what happens when you don't plan. When you act and you don't plan. So she pulls him out. She's a slow puller. And she's like, okay, I'm not crazy. Why don't we try this again? So she picks him up and she's like, hey, you dummy. I'm gonna kill you if you don't do that again, what you just did.
I said talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
You stupid bitch, you filthy slut! Did you fuck with me?
So we finally get animatronic Chucky. Goodbye, stupid doll Chucky. It's animatronic Chucky's turn now. Seriously, for us, the movie now, he's just a full-on animatronic. Or a guy in a suit. It's like they took the old crappy Chucky prop and just threw it away. Which makes for a better second half of the movie, but it's a different type of movie. One of the smartest things they did, though, was save this stuff. I'm glad they waited until the 45-minute mark to really let this guy out. But anyway, yeah, Chucky fights, escapes, and Karen's like, where do you think you're going? And she really starts to kick ass here. I don't really know what she would do if she caught Chucky, though. I really like the character conflict here because she can't tell anybody that this happened. Like if she caught up to Chucky and captured him and went to the police, they would just send her to the nut house. The timing of all of this is actually kind of perfect. Good job, Tom Holland. Anyway, after that long chase, Chucky is just gone. It's funny how quickly we went from the worst part of the movie to like the best part of the movie. This is a pretty good conflict here. I don't know what I would do if I was Karen in this situation. I probably wouldn't have done this though.
What are you doing back here?
Andy was telling the truth. Chucky is alive and he killed Eddie Caputo.
I mean, what kind of reaction was she expecting? I mean, bless her for it. She tried. She showed the batteries. She showed the bite mark. But let's be realistic here. You could probably show a video footage of the whole thing and you'd still probably think it's fake. And I don't blame them. And that's why these movies succeed so well when they're grounded in reality. Anyway, she leaves and he's like, where you going? And she's like, I'm gonna find the bum who sold me the doll.
That isn't a good part of town to be in at this time of night.
Yeah, but she doesn't care. So the scene of Karen looking for the bum is pretty funny. Lady, you just described everybody here. It turns into kind of a weird silent montage. After a few minutes of this, she eventually finds the right group of cartoon hobos. When she sees the guy, she immediately runs over to him so excited, and he proceeds to rob her and then try to rape her. Your heart was in the right place, Karen, but you really weren't thinking this through. Lucky for her, Detective Norris followed her here and puts everyone in line.
Talk! A burned out toy store on Wabash, that's where I got it.
Wait, Chucky was at the toy store in the doll form and he went into a box, or he just like stayed still and the homeless guy put him in the box? I'm now thinking for the first time, how did Chucky get inside that box? Anyway, Detective Norris is spooked by this because it's the same toy store from the intro. So now Detective Norris has a reason to believe that it could possibly be Charles Lee Ray somehow. Which does make more sense than Andy randomly wanting to kill Eddie Caputo.
Did he say anything? Anything at all?
Oh.
Charles Lee Ray.
Yeah, he threatened to kill me and Eddie Caputo.
At no point in the intro sequence does Charles Lee Ray ever do that. Regardless, Detective Norris gets Chucky's file and goes back to his car, and he's about to light a cigarette until we're about an hour into the movie, and this is the only time Chucky tries to strangle somebody. I don't know why they put such an emphasis on him being the strangler. Like they could have just called him the South Street Killer or something. I don't know why he doesn't just brake. For some reason, he just keeps driving while being strangled. Your left foot is clearly right there on the ground next to the brake. Oh, I get it. You just hate this song. Norris gets his cigarette lighter thingy and burns Chucky with it. Okay, he's off of you. Now you can finally brake. Oh, nope. You're close. Oh, whoa, Chucky, foul ball. This is turning into a farce. This is a Naked Gun sketch. And now he's driving on the wrong side of the road? What? Oh my god, another flaming trash barrel, really? How is the car still moving? So Chucky decides to get down there and put his hand on the gas. Which, you can still brake. The brake overrides the gas. Whatever, I'm skipping ahead. The car crashes.
Hi! Die, Mikey!
So Chucky tries to stab Norris, misses, gets, what? You can see the hand pulling the doll out. So Chucky runs around like an idiot. I love these charming improv doll effects. Chucky charges at him head on and gets shot. And then he leaves. And that's it. Karen decides to check out Charles Lee Ray's house. It's kind of funny to think that Chucky actually painted all this stuff on his wall. Is that supposed to be him? He painted himself with a giant. I don't really know who else would have painted it. This is like some serious 80s college art. She notices a painting of this voodoo guy, and then she sees something that's even more questionable. Yeah, I guess Chucky painted that recently. He came back to his house to paint on his wall. I don't know why he would do that. That's kind of stupid. That's actually really stupid. Why would you introduce that? You don't need to add that to the movie. Uh-oh, Karen, look out. There's someone behind you. It could be a stalker. Look out. Oh yeah, it actually is your stalker. Hey Karen, just stopping by to give you some plot and context here. There you go. So this voodoo guy is apparently one of Chucky's friends. I don't know. Did he pose for that painting? What kind of scene went on in this house? Next, we meet John Bishop.
Hi!
It's confirmed that, yeah, this is the guy who taught Chucky all the voodoo stuff. Chucky explains to him that he got shot and it hurt and he thought he was going to be invincible as a doll.
You're turning human.
What?
The more time you spend in that body, the more human you become.
You mean I have to live out the rest of my life in this body?
Chucky wants his help to get out of the body, but John won't do it.
Because you're an abomination. An outrage against nature!
I guess John doesn't really practice what he preaches. He starts to gather his voodoo defense force when all of a sudden Chucky surprises him with a voodoo doll. He proceeds to torture John to tell him how to get out of the body.
You have to transfer your soul out of the doll into that of the first human being you revealed your true self to.
Chucky realizes that this is Andy, so now he has to hunt Andy down to get into Andy's body. I mean, out of all the plot holes in this movie, I don't really mind the voodoo stuff.
And I just thought, well, that's a whole other kind of magic that's going on in this movie. So it's like, well, if he has a voodoo doll of this guy, why can't he make voodoo dolls of all the other people he wants to kill? For that matter, as a serial killer, you know, why not make voodoo dolls of all your victims? And it's probably, I don't know, maybe an occupational hazard.
Why not make a voodoo doll out of Chucky? I mean, he's already a doll. You could probably just say some voodoo to him and then he becomes a voodoo doll of himself. I'm just kidding around. This voodoo stuff doesn't really matter. I understand the can of worms that voodoo opens up, but I feel like it's actually underutilized in a lot of ways. I guess we'll get more into that with the sequels. Voodoo is one of those things that's kind of a great write-off in regards to anything that you need to happen plot-wise. Anyone else think it's weird that this guy is supposed to be like a voodoo shaman, but his name is just John? John Bishop? John Bishop the shaman? So Karen and Norris arrive, find him dying, and the shaman, for some reason, gives Karen the secret to defeating Chucky.
Heart. His heart is almost human. It's the only way through the heart.
So now they know they need to go back, protect Andy, and kill Chucky. Unfortunately, Andy's in the crazy house. How do you put like a 5-year-old kid in a cell like this? This is like all these shots of Chucky moving around are actually another 6-year-old kid in a suit. It was the producer's neighbor's son. It doesn't always work. Wait, okay, so this is also kind of funny. You see how he's not crying at all? And then Andy's crying a lot? Apparently, they did like a ton of takes on this, and the director started saying just really awful things to Alex Vincent, the child actor, in order to get him to cry. Like apparently unspeakable stuff and stuff that led to him not being brought back on the sequels. So Chucky breaks into the insane asylum because the keys are right there. Yeah, zoom in. Perfect. They've established these keys more than they established Andy's father, who's just missing from this movie, by the way. This is one of the instances where the Chucky suit looks good. For the most part, the Chucky effects work really well. When this movie came out, it was really like cutting edge technology. There's like an entire team of people always working on Chucky. Chucky's hand always looks so weird. Andy escapes because Chucky left the keys on the ground for some reason. His escape doesn't last long though because, well, he's Andy. So Chucky just finds him again immediately. But then Chucky comically rolls away for some reason. Alex Vincent really was perfect for this role as Andy. I mean, he just really owns it. There's a lot of times in the sequence where you just kind of feel for Andy being a helpless 6-year-old boy. And all things considered, he does kind of hold his own against Chucky here. Anyway, the doctor finds Andy, takes the knife from him. He tries to give Andy a shot to calm down, but Chucky comes and stabs the doctor in the leg to save Andy. Not sure why he didn't just let the doctor give the shot. And then he puts on an electric therapy helmet. What kind of place is this? This equipment's just on hand and ready to go. I mean, sure, but you could have let Andy get the shot and then do this. The doctor never saw Chucky either, which means he thinks right now he's getting killed by Andy. That's gotta suck. Andy escapes, and then the ambiguously late duo show up. Wait, seriously, what is this place? This looks like the intro to Amadeus. They find out that Andy's being blamed for the murder of the doctor. What'd I tell you about talking to these people? They decide to go home to look for Andy.
Well, where would Andy go?
He'd go home. I always told him to go there if he was in trouble.
Does he have a key?
Under the mat.
Come on, we don't have this time.
So Andy goes home, locks himself inside, and starts barricading his entranceway. Next, we see Chucky's on his way there. It's a nice detail here how the doll is actually starting to look like Charles Lee Ray.
Ugly doll. Fuck you.
Brilliant ADR. Did I talk about how base this football jacket is? Andy was styling so hard in this movie, honestly. So Andy decides to get into his closet and hide and hope Chucky doesn't find him. But while hiding, he finds his baseball bat and has like a moment. And now he decides he wants to fight Chucky. It's a very short scene, but I'm glad it's in the movie.
Sometimes we would use a version of the house that was 30% larger. So when we put a little person in a costume, that little person looked like he was much smaller.
The attention to detail on these special effects are one of the reasons why the movie still holds up today. It's the type of stuff that would be replaced by CGI nowadays. Anyway, Andy takes a swing at Chucky, misses, and just runs. You tried. It was nice to see Andy try to fight back, but at the end of the day, he's still Andy. Chucky begins his voodoo spell to leave the doll and enter Andy's body. Karen and Norris show up and start running upstairs. There's a bit of a long back and forth between them trying to get upstairs and Chucky doing the spell. Eventually they arrive at the door. They can't get in because Andy blocked off the door. Chucky hears them and he's startled. I don't know why he stopped, but he did. Probably could have just kept going. Norris and Karen proceed to break in. Karen runs for the living room. She yells out Beetlejuice to stop him. And then we get Karen versus Chucky Part 2. This time Norris is here though, so he just grabs Chucky and throws him. His one weakness. He gets up and stabs Norris in the leg. Norris goes down. Wait a minute. Can we go back to that for a second? So Norris is hurt, but then he's fine. He starts hunting around the apartment for Chucky. He gets stabbed with a baseball bat and then knocked out. He's about to finish Norris off, and then badass Karen shows up. Hell yeah. Seriously, she's the best character in this movie. Chucky gets up, the gun jams. That's the ugliest version of Chucky. Karen runs, trips, and gets attacked by Chucky for a third time. This time Karen wins though. She puts him in the fireplace and uses her weight to keep him in there. I love the sounds Chucky makes in this sequence. She tries to reach for some matches. They fall out of reach. I love Chucky behind her. He's just been staring at her, by the way. She's like, come on. His senses finally kick back in. She turns on the gas. Andy grabs a match. I'll just let you watch this scene play out.
Andy, no, please. We're friends to the end, remember?
This is the end, friend.
It's definitely one of the better parts of the movie. This whole elongated burning scene is pretty awesome. I love how he like kicks it out and just walks around on fire. I mean, this really just drags on for a long time in an excellent way. Here's how it was done.
Several times we used Ed Gale. He's about 10 inches taller than Chucky. We would come to the shop and he would study the doll because we decided if he just moved fluently, we could not mimic that.
The wonderful actor that played Chucky as a little person studied what Kevin was doing with the movements of the doll and tried to capture that movement in his movements.
We used him in scenes like when Chucky gets caught on fire, he runs around. It's a 30% bigger stage, so Ed was about 30% bigger than Chucky, so they literally built an entire living room stage 30% larger.
Okay. You're out. Stop.
Yeah, it looks really awesome. They did a great job. That person right there was Kevin Yeager, who was the head of all the special effects for Chucky. And he also met his wife on set.
I had already heard the name Kevin Yeager, and I'd seen you with Little Puppeteers, and I thought, oh my God, he's so cute. So I had one scene left, and I saw him sort of go out the door, you know, way at the end of the soundstage, and I thought, I wonder if he stayed to watch me. That's my first time I saw you.
And you were in love instantly?
Uh-huh.
You were. You don't remember meeting me the first time. I walked up, Miss Hicks, and I handed you the doll, and you were hot. In the middle of all of that, horror, death, blood, violence, two people found each other, and we're still together.
Yeah, 17 years.
It's kind of a nice story of two people meeting on set, even though they seem straight out of a Christopher Guest movie. So they run to Detective Norris. He decided that his leg hurt again, and he goes under the sink to get Band-Aids for Norris until... So he runs to tell Karen. And now we get burnt Chucky.
Hello, Andy.
This is my favorite Chucky shot of the movie. He just looks great. Andy runs in the bedroom. Chucky starts chucking out onto the door.
Give me the boy and I'll let you live. Do you hear me? Give me the boy.
I really love the final act of this movie. Chucky remembers there's another way into the bedroom and heads for that door. It'd be nice if Andy helped out here a little bit. Chucky tries again to the second door and stabs through it. It's like an infomercial knife. This knife can cut through anything. Doors? No problem. Just pull your head away from the door. You don't need to put your head there. Karen's screaming so loudly that Chucky assumes that he hit her, or he just sees an opportunity, but he books it for the other door again. So Karen grabs Andy, leaves the room, and then she remembers that she has a gun and just shoots him repeatedly. I really like this whole burnt Chucky sequence in general. I think it's a nice second act to Chucky attacking. And he just won't die, but it doesn't really feel tired because he's burnt Chucky now. It's kind of like it's a different version of Chucky. I also like how she's really taking him apart. It's like she forgot the guy told her you have to shoot him in the heart if you want to kill him. Like she's just dumbfounded that he's still alive. I know she's supposed to know how to kill Chucky, but we wouldn't have such a great ending if she just shot him in the heart immediately. Sometimes plot holes are better for the movie. Then again, she really does shoot him everywhere but the heart in this scene. Now that she's out of bullets and horribly disfigured Chucky for life, the cop shows up. You know, the cop from the beginning. They all run back to Norris, who decided to join the movie again.
So tell me what happened. The kid was right. The doll's alive. You almost got the three of us.
So Norris's partner goes to see what the doll's all about. He brings Chucky's head into the room and tries to talk some sense into everybody.
Okay, Mike.
He tries to convince them that they're all being crazy, but then Chucky comes out and just grabs him. They all just sort of sit there staring at him while he's fighting with Chucky until Karen gets up and helps him. She throws Chucky across the room. Norris takes out his other gun and finally shoots Chucky right in the heart.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
You believe me now?
Yeah. But who's gonna believe me?
And then they all get up and leave the room. And that's Child's Play. As a standalone movie, it's pretty darn good. I know I nitpicked a lot of things throughout, but that was more just for fun. Little things here and there should never really prevent you from enjoying a movie. This is definitely overall a very enjoyable movie. I don't really like to rate things with numbers or stars or bags of popcorn. I would just say that this is worth a watch. The best thing about this movie is that in a lot of ways it stands the test of time. It's definitely one of the few 80s horrors that can still be watched today with the same effect. So I plan on doing all the Child's Play movies. The rest definitely aren't as good as this one. The second one is pretty good, and the other ones. Oh yeah, one more quick thing. After the movie was over, they ripped the skin off Chucky and turned it into the Crypt Keeper. They actually have the same exact eyes. And then after that, they ripped the skin off again and used it for a Daft Punk music video. So if you want to use the Chucky doll for anything, call MGM. They're really pimping him out. Chucky turned out to be a real slut.